When a tired security guard blocked a biker from entering a luxury hotel party, he thought he was just doing his job. What he didn't know, the man he stopped wasn't just a guest, he owned the building. What happened next changed both of their lives. The velvet rope at the entrance of the rooftop ballroom was meant to keep out the wrong kind of noise. Inside, soft jazz floated over clinking glasses and million-dollar handshakes. Outside, Marcus Taylor stood tall in his security uniform, eyes sharp, jaw tight, scanning every guest like the entire hotel rested on his shoulders. It was supposed to be a quiet night, as quiet as a Friday evening could be when a global hospitality group was finalizing the purchase of half the city's skyline. Marcus had worked double shifts all week, barely catching sleep between his morning check-ins with his daughter and long nights guarding crystal chandeliers and couture tuxedos. But tonight, something felt off. Past 10, the elevator sighed open at the far end of the hall. Out stepped a man who didn't belong. Leather boots, worn denim, gray beard that looked more wind-whipped than styled. A thick ringed hand reached up and pulled off a pair of mirrored sunglasses, indoors at night, as if daring the room to question him. On the back of his cracked leather vest was the unmistakable patch, Hell's Angels. He walked with the slow confidence of someone who didn't care about approval, or had long since stopped needing it. Marcus instinctively stepped forward, blocking his path. "I'm sorry, sir. This is a private event. Invitation only." The man tilted his head, looking at Marcus for a beat too long. His face didn't twist in annoyance or flash any indignation. Instead, he smiled, calm, wide, and maybe just a little amused. "You always this polite when turning folks away?" the man asked, voice gravelly low. "Only when they give me a reason to be," Marcus replied, steady. "May I see your name?" The man paused. "Charles Green." Marcus checked the guest list on his tablet. Scanned again. Nothing. "I'm afraid you're not listed, Mr. Green." A brief silence stretched between them. Two men built by years of storms, measuring each other in the quiet. "That's all right," Charles finally said, adjusting his sunglasses and turning back toward the elevator. "Wouldn't want to interrupt." Marcus watched him leave. No fuss, no name-dropping, no threats, just a calm retreat, like a man who'd decided it wasn't his fight. He tapped the earpiece clipped to his collar. "Guest attempted entry," said his name was Charles Green. "Not on the list," turned him away. From the ballroom, the event coordinator's voice crackled back with casual disinterest. "Yeah, all good. Keep the door tight. We're at capacity." But they weren't. Marcus knew it. And something about that man, it didn't sit right. Not in a dangerous way. More like something important had just brushed past him, and he hadn't fully registered it. By midnight, the party was in full swing. Laughter spilled out through the open terrace doors. Marcus stayed at his post, resisting the ache in his knees and the weight behind his eyes. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his daughter, Lila. "Can I stay at Maya's tonight? Her mom's cool with it." Marcus rubbed his temple. He hadn't seen Lila awake in 3 days. Work, school, custody weekends, everything had turned into passing glances and voicemail check-ins. "Only if her mom texts me. And no sneaking off again." "Ugh, fine." He sighed. The last argument with his ex-wife had ended with threats of full custody. "You're never home," she'd said. "She's raising herself." And maybe she wasn't entirely wrong. Still, he kept showing up. If that meant baggy eyes and 3 meals of vending machine peanuts, so be it. Back in the ballroom, a murmur rippled across the crowd. The head of the investment group looked visibly rattled. The general manager had gone pale. Someone had just realized something. 2 floors down, in a corner booth of the hotel lounge, Charles Green nursed a black coffee and listened to his assistant whisper over the phone, sweating bullets. "They said it was a clerical error, sir. Your name never made it to the guest list. They're sending someone down now to apologize." Charles held up a hand, signaling silence. His gaze drifted to the security feed behind the bar. Camera 3, the rooftop entry. There stood the same man, upright, unmoved, like a soldier frozen in time. Charles chuckled to himself. He didn't blink. he muttered. Sir. The security guard, when I gave him my name, didn't grovel, just did his job. Charles leaned back in the booth, the leather creaking under his weight. His smile faded into something quieter, reflective. Get me his name. That night, Marcus clocked out sometime after 2 in the morning. The hotel lobby was quiet, staff gone home, city lights dimmed by mist. He stepped out into the parking lot, only to find his old Ford Fusion with a parking ticket tucked under the wiper. He groaned. As he pulled it loose, a rumble echoed nearby, low and steady. A motorcycle engine. He turned to see a black Harley idling by the curb. The rider wore a helmet now, face obscured. No words were exchanged. Just a slow nod from the man on the bike, and then he was gone, swallowed by the dark. Marcus stood there for a long moment, hand still holding the ticket. He stood there, ticket in hand, the engine's rumble already swallowed by the dark. He didn't understand why his chest felt lighter, or why he hadn't looked away when the rider nodded. The morning after the rooftop party, Santa Fe woke under a canopy of low gray clouds. Marcus Taylor had already been up for hours. He moved through his small apartment like a man on autopilot, measuring coffee, checking his watch, glancing at the silent hallway that led to his daughter's room. Lila hadn't come home. No text, no call, not even the usual one-word "okay" to let him know she was safe. Marcus stared at his phone, thumb hovering over the call button. He dialed. 1 ring. 2. Voicemail. He sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the blank wall. The silence in the apartment was heavier than usual. It wasn't just the absence. It was the slow creeping fear that maybe she was starting to drift beyond his reach. Across town, in the penthouse suite of the same hotel, Charles Green sipped his black coffee while his assistant stood stiffly beside him, clutching a tablet. "We've got his name," the assistant said. "Marcus Taylor, 42. Army vet, 2 tours, Bronze Star. Clean record. Divorced. 1 daughter. Lives in a rental off Cerrillos Road. Works nights. Pays his legal fees with credit cards and silence." Charles didn't respond at first. He stared out the window at the mountain ridges in the distance. "I want everything," Charles said finally. "Service records, court filings, and how long he's been working security." The assistant hesitated. "Do you want me to reach out directly?" Charles shook his head. "No, not yet. Let's see who he really is, when no one's watching." That afternoon, Marcus's phone finally rang. Not Lila, a school administrator. "Mr. Taylor, we need to speak with you about your daughter." The tone was measured, cautious, the kind of voice people used when preparing to deliver bad news. Lila had been caught at an unsupervised party the night before. There'd been alcohol, a medical emergency, and a police report. No one had been charged, but the incident had triggered a notification to family court, especially with an ongoing custody case in play. Marcus didn't say much. He just listened, jaw clenched, hand white-knuckling the armrest of his chair. He hung up and stared at the wall again, then down at his call log. Still no message from her. By 9 p.m., the apartment door creaked open. Lila stepped in, shoulders hunched, her phone clutched in her palm like a shield. Marcus was at the kitchen table again. A printout from the school lay in front of him. "You lied to me," he said. His voice wasn't raised, but it carried weight. Lila didn't reply. "You could have gotten hurt," he went on. "That girl, they had to call an ambulance." She looked up at him, finally. "You think I wanted to be there? You're never home. You say you care, but I see you less than Mom." He started to speak, stopped, then pushed a hand through his short-cropped hair. "I'm doing the best I can," he muttered. Lila's voice cracked. "Your best isn't enough." And with that, she disappeared down the hallway and locked the door behind her. Marcus sat there for a long time after that, long enough for the coffee to go cold. The next morning, Charles stood in a dim parking garage beneath the hotel, flanked by a nervous manager and a junior VP. They watched grainy security footage on a tablet. Charles was silent as the scene replayed. Marcus, standing firm at the ballroom door, turning him away without flinching. No fear. No recognition. No compromise. The manager cleared his throat. It was a clerical error, Mr. Green. The event team forgot to update the guest list. Charles didn't care about the list anymore. That man, Charles said, pointing at the screen. He wasn't checking names. He was defending the standard. That's rare. The VP tried to smile. We can bring him in for a meeting. Make some gesture. Charles shook his head. No meetings. No PR stunts. Just keep him where he is. For now. Back on the other side of town, Marcus sat across from his court-appointed attorney, listening to the litany of ways in which he was failing. Too many hours. Too many absences. A daughter left to drift. Judges like consistency, the attorney said. If Lila's mom pushes this, you're on thin ice. Marcus rubbed the bridge of his nose. He'd already maxed out one credit card just trying to keep up with legal fees. When he got back to the hotel for his night shift, the front desk manager flagged him down. You've been added to something called the internal distinction list, she said, reading from an email. Apparently by direct request. No further details. Marcus frowned. Is that good? She shrugged. No idea. But it doesn't sound bad. After his shift, Marcus walked to his car. The parking lot was nearly empty. Wind stirred leaves across the pavement. As he reached the driver's side, he spotted something on the windshield. An envelope, tucked neatly under the wiper blade. No return address. Just his name in blocky handwriting. He opened it slowly, half expecting a parking citation. Inside was a single sheet of paper. At the top, the faded logo of the Hells Angels. Beneath it, 2 handwritten lines. Character isn't what you do when someone's watching. It's what you do when no one is. No signature. Just a faint brown ring at the corner of the paper, like a coffee cup had rested there. Marcus looked around the lot. Empty. Quiet. He stared at the message again. The coffee ring on the corner felt warm, like someone had just left it there, and still cared enough to wait. Not because he demanded it, but because someone somewhere had been paying attention. It started like any other shift. Marcus stood in the lobby of a sister hotel across town. A newer property in Albuquerque, sleeker, colder, all brushed steel and automated elevators. He'd been assigned here temporarily, no explanation given. Just an email from HR. Report to Mesa Lux location for overnight detail. Week-long assignment. Same rate. Same hours. He didn't question it. A paycheck was a paycheck. Still, something felt orchestrated. The staff barely spoke to him. The manager was unusually formal. And the layout, cameras in every corner, no clear blind spots, reminded Marcus more of a controlled training facility than a working hotel. The lobby thinned past 11. Just stragglers now, the kind who linger after parties end. A delayed business flight, a quiet couple from out of state. Nothing out of the ordinary, until the fire alarm triggered. Not the blaring kind, but a muted override, an internal signal Marcus recognized from his military days. A coded alert, only visible on security panels. A system test or something pretending to be one. He tapped into the surveillance system. The feed from the third-floor hallway was offline. That wasn't standard protocol. He moved. Charles Green sat in a black SUV parked across the street, eyes on a tablet streaming body cam footage. Beside him, his head of corporate security watched in silence. You sure he won't freeze? The man asked. Charles didn't blink. No, I'm sure he won't hesitate. Marcus reached the third floor with trained quiet. No radio chatter, no stomping boots. He scanned the hallway. A man in a black hoodie, face half covered, was forcing open a room door with a crowbar. From inside, a woman screamed. Marcus didn't call for backup. In 5 strides, he crossed the carpet, grabbed the intruder by the shoulder, and slammed him against the wall with just enough force to stun. Never enough to break. Let her go, Marcus shouted, pinning the man as the woman inside cried out. Within seconds, 2 more guests came running down the hall from opposite ends. One pulled a fake handgun. The other shouted, "Get out of the way, man. That's not your fight." Marcus didn't flinch. You made it mine the second you stepped into this building. He disarmed the gunman without a second thought. A textbook move. Knee, elbow, palm strike. Then he turned to the third, who suddenly dropped character and raised his hands. Test complete, the man said. Marcus froze, his grip still locked on the first attacker's jacket. What? The woman from the room stepped out, now calm, smiling. We're with corporate, she said. This was a security evaluation. Marcus slowly released his hold. He looked around. No guests had seen it. No hotel staff had intervened. The cameras, back online now, had captured everything. You could have gotten someone hurt, he muttered. The actor rubbed his shoulder, voice flat now, stripped of performance. That wasn't part of the drill. Marcus didn't move. Then why'd she scream like she was being pulled under? The elevator doors opened. The hotel manager stepped out with a clipboard and a smug expression. Well done, Mr. Taylor, he said. That was impressive. Marcus stared at him. What is this? Just standard protocol, the manager said, eyes darting to the door. Nothing out of the ordinary. Happens all the time. But Marcus knew better. There was nothing standard about this. Still, he stayed quiet. He just walked back toward the stairwell, his hands tight, his pulse finally starting to slow. Back in the SUV, Charles closed the tablet. He didn't just pass, his security chief said. He owned the floor. Charles nodded. He saw the threat, weighed the risk, and moved, just instinct. The chief leaned forward. You sure you want him? A guy like that doesn't take orders easily. Charles smiled. I'm not hiring him to follow. I'm hiring him to build something. 2 days later, Marcus returned to his regular hotel post. No explanation for the test. No acknowledgement. Just another shift. Another night. But something was different. Guests seemed more respectful. The general manager offered him a real break instead of the usual hollow promise. Even the front desk clerk brought him coffee without being asked. Sometime after 2, Marcus stepped outside for air. A motorcycle was parked across the street. The same black Harley. This time, the rider wasn't hidden behind a helmet. Charles stood next to the bike, leaning against the seat with a paper bag in hand. Didn't think I'd see you again, Marcus said. Charles tossed the bag lightly in his direction. Bagel, egg and cheese. No tomato. Marcus caught it. You been watching me? Not exactly, Charles said. Been learning from you. There was silence between them, comfortably tense. You run the hotel? Marcus asked finally. Charles chuckled. No, I'm buying the whole chain. Marcus blinked. You're serious? I'm always serious when it comes to people who still believe in doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Marcus leaned against the brick wall, bagel untouched. You set me up. I gave you a scenario. You showed me who you are. Marcus looked at him. And who's that, in your opinion? Charles shrugged. The guy I want protecting what matters. He paused, then added, You've been holding the line alone. Maybe it's time someone had your six. Marcus didn't speak for a moment. He didn't trust handouts, didn't believe in easy fixes. But something about Charles's presence, the way he looked him in the eye, the absence of pressure, felt different. Real. What do you want from me? Marcus asked. Charles smiled. Not just your loyalty, your leadership. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather folder. Inside was a job offer. Personal security director. 6-figure salary. Full custody legal support. Travel optional. Veterans preferred for team selection. I'll give you time, Charles said. But not too much. Men like you are rare, and time has a habit of testing us before we're ready. Marcus didn't open the folder until the apartment was quiet and Lila was asleep. The offer was real. More than a promotion, it was a lifeline. But what stuck with him wasn't the salary or the title. It was the final line scribbled in Charles's handwriting. We don't just need protection, we need purpose. He nodded once and mounted the Harley. The engine growled. He just rode off into the night. Marcus stood alone again. Something had shifted. He wasn't standing alone anymore, and he knew it. Marcus didn't sign the offer immediately. He let it sit on the table for 2 days, unopened after the initial glance. The leather folder remained untouched, a silent promise he wasn't sure he trusted. Lila noticed it one morning during breakfast, next to the coffee mug he forgot to rinse out. "You gonna take that job?" she asked, chewing on dry cereal. Marcus didn't look up from his phone. "Still thinking about it." Lila shrugged, but there was something different in her tone, something softer than usual. "You'd be home more, right?" Marcus set the phone down and studied her face. She didn't say it like someone who wanted a new iPad. She said it like someone who was tired of waiting for her dad to come back from wherever his mind had been hiding. "Yeah," he said. "I would." The next morning, Marcus met Charles in a downtown Santa Fe office space that barely looked finished. Exposed brick walls, 2 folding chairs, a coffee pot balanced on a stack of unopened boxes. "You call this a headquarters?" Marcus asked. Charles grinned. "It's where I plan things that matter." On the table lay blueprints of summits and galas, their dates smudged with coffee rings. Beside them, a stack of folders, each one a face Charles had met in halfway houses, VA waiting rooms, and the back booths of diners where men sat alone, staring into cold cups, pretending they weren't waiting for something to change. "Security teams for each event," Charles said, tapping the roster. "I want people I can trust. People who know what it's like to watch each other's backs when no one else does." Names blurred together until one hit him like a brick. One jumped out, Jerome Taylor. He didn't react right away, just let the paper sit under his fingertips like it might burn. Charles noticed. Background check flagged the same last name. I double-checked. Same father listed on both records. "We haven't spoken since Dad's funeral," Marcus said quietly. "Well," Charles replied, "maybe it's time." The first official assignment came 3 weeks later. A private summit in Austin. Diplomats, CEOs, a couple senators. Nothing made the headlines, but the stakes were high. Marcus led a 10-man team. 8 of them were veterans. The 9th? Jerome. Their first meeting was brief. A nod, a handshake, nothing else. But during a lunch break, Jerome caught Marcus in the parking lot. "You still drink that awful black coffee from the gas station?" Marcus smirked. "You still leave tools all over the garage?" They sat on the tailgate of a rented van, sharing a quiet moment that had been 14 years overdue. "I read about your Bronze Star," Jerome said. "Took me a while to be proud instead of pissed." Marcus looked down at his boots. "I was never trying to outrun you. I was just trying to survive what came next." Jerome nodded. "Well, you're here now." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was real, and that was enough. Back in Santa Fe, Lila started spending more afternoons at the public library. Her counselor had mentioned a new program for teens, peer mentorship for children of veterans. At first, she only went because the therapist suggested it. But by the 3rd visit, she stayed late. The stories she heard, kids with fathers deployed, mothers battling PTSD, families struggling with loss, made her realize something. Her father hadn't just been missing because of work. He'd been trying to hold back a tide no one else saw. One evening, as Marcus cooked spaghetti for dinner, Lila walked into the kitchen with a flyer in hand. "I think I want to study psychology," she said, "to help people like us." Marcus turned off the burner and leaned against the counter. "You'd be good at that." She smiled. "You think so?" "I know so." The big moment came 6 weeks later. Charles called Marcus into a polished, glass-walled office. A sleek new badge slid across the table. Chief of Executive Security, Green Group International. "You're not just protecting people anymore," Charles said. "You're shaping the system. And you trust me with that?" Marcus asked. Charles leaned back. "You already passed the only test that mattered. You stood your ground when no one was watching." A second folder followed. Not a job offer, something else. Marcus opened it and saw the name. The Watchtower Foundation. A new nonprofit. Its mission: hire and retrain veterans. Fund college scholarships for their children. Create peer support structures for PTSD recovery. "I want you to help me run it," Charles said. "You and Lila." Marcus froze. "She's just a kid." She's got vision. You've got backbone. I've got funding. That's how good things start. Marcus didn't speak for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Let's do it right. The next year moved quickly. Marcus only took the flights that mattered, and every Sunday he was back in Santa Fe cooking dinner. He built security teams that worked with empathy, not intimidation. Lila started volunteer counseling at 16. Jerome became the field supervisor for Western states. They turned the Watchtower Foundation into something real, tangible, not just for PR or photo ops, but for families like theirs who didn't know where to turn. One evening, Marcus stood at the edge of a charity gala hosted in Phoenix. Veterans shook hands in tailored jackets. Families hugged near easels lined with framed photos of their journeys. Moments of struggle and survival now transformed into stories of resilience. Near the entrance, Lila lingered at a display of handwritten letters from teenagers whose parents had found work through the foundation. She read one carefully, tracing the uneven handwriting with her fingertip, then straightened her shoulders and stepped into the crowd. Soon she was beside Marcus, wearing a modest dress and smiling shyly as she introduced herself to donors. She's got that same quiet storm behind her eyes, Charles said, approaching with a drink in hand. Marcus shook his head. No, she's got her own strength. Charles raised his glass. Marcus didn't speak, just touched the rim of his own cool, empty. As the night unfolded, Marcus realized something. He'd spent years standing guard at the threshold, keeping others safe. Now, for once, he was the one holding the door open. This story reminds us that integrity doesn't need an audience. It speaks loudest when no one's looking. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Tell us in the comments. And if you believe stories like this matter, give it a like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey. See you in the next video.